All right, we're live. It's a beautiful, rainy Friday afternoon down here in Miami, but we are excited because we've got Daniel Heisler from Blackberry Farm Brewery in Tennessee. And so thank you for joining us this Friday afternoon.
You bet, Marco. It's a beautiful day here. Tennessee is gorgeous this time of year.
You're rubbing it in. It's looked like a hurricane is coming all day long. But I'm really excited to have you on. I try and look around the country for breweries that I think are unique, breweries that have something special about them, that are not only doing really great beers. There's a lot of breweries doing pretty damn good beers nowadays, but it's cool to highlight those breweries that have something that's kind of nobody else has, special. And I think that you guys, being Blackberry Farm, have like this really cool story or circumstance surrounding you guys. For a lot of people who don't know what that means, I mean, maybe you want to describe kind of what Blackberry Farm is and where you guys are.
Yeah, well, Blackberry Farm is a remarkable place. It is a relais and chateau luxury resort, and it's famous for that, and also it's James Beard award-winning cuisine at the farm, and it's hard to put into words everything that you could experience at Blackberry because the experience is so large. Not only is it a vacation destination, but it's a destination for people to come and enjoy life and experience everything more. It's not just a little vacation to a destination. Yes is the answer there, and as long as the patron is engaged, anything can happen. Right? There are set offerings like you can go to the river and fly fish for trout, or you can take a bike ride, but they'll make anything happen for you that you want. It's a remarkable place, and it's in a beautiful destination. It's nested right up against the Smoky Mountains here in eastern Tennessee, and I came down here from Michigan and formerly Oregon, and it is equally on par with those two beautiful places as well, where you have all four seasons. You have this super long summer, a beautiful growing season. It's the South, so you have some delicious barbecue. Mm-hmm. The list really goes on and on about how nice it is down here.
It's funny, I mean, not funny, but you mentioned the South, and the South is kind of being known now as the next frontier for beer, so it's cool to kind of, I'd imagine, to be situated right here, right now. We were talking before, not even a year into kind of really releasing these products. Yeah. And being able to be on the forefront, especially winning a silver medal recently at the Great American Beer Festival.
Yeah, you're right, and it's very interesting. I hadn't sort of thought about that when I took the opportunity to come down here and be a part of this brewery. I hadn't thought about how so many of these big companies, Sierra Nevada, Oscar Blues, New Belgium, are all moving east. They're creating ancillary facilities in the east, and they're all choosing, this approximate area. And it is the forefront of some super creative stuff that's going on. And we're a part of that drive, and that's just adding to the sort of adventure that's happening down here. We came on with this program and submitting to GABF pretty much like everybody else does, just looking to get positive feedback. And we knew we were trying to do something special, but to come away with that early silver medal was really great.
It's pretty awesome. And you're drinking that beer right now.
Yeah, well, I switched up with you. You went for a classic, so I pulled one out of the fridge real quick, and I'll walk through with you.
Cool. Yeah, you know what? We'll get into that in a second. But I kind of want to get back into a little bit about where you're at. I think the reason is because I'm a big believer in, just like any other product, kind of like you remember your favorite meal. It may not have been the best food technically that you've ever eaten, but it may have been the experience that made it the best food you've ever eaten. I'm a big oyster guy, and for example, I can remember my favorite oyster ever was in Madrid, in a market, and they open these French oysters up, and I see the seawater spilling out of the box, and they give me the oyster straight out of the box. So it may not have been the best oyster I've ever eaten, but it was my favorite, and it's all because of that experience. So I'd imagine, especially for you, maybe being such a beautiful place, I recommend, people don't know what we're talking about, go online and research and look at their website. It's just a gorgeous location.
Yeah, well, my Blackberry will double down on that. It will not only be a gorgeous location, but it will also be the best food you've ever had.
There you go.
The chefs are remarkable. The attention to detail is second to none. The execution is just absolutely pure. And it doesn't matter what you get. Sure, not every person is going to thoroughly enjoy every dish. Everyone has, individual preferences. But what they are doing out of the culinary barn is truly remarkable. I can't speak to it more than that. I've been out to dinner there a number of times, and every single time I'm blown away.
Right. That's gotta do a couple of things. It's gotta maybe inspire you when you're brewing the next recipe or coming up with the next recipe, and two, it's gotta put some pressure on you. Hey, you gotta keep up with these guys.
Sure. Pressure is a little piece of the business, and it's not only pressure from that, but pressure from peers.
Sure.
But it's also a huge resource, because when I am doing test batches or when I come out with beer, I have those caliber of chefs and sommeliers that can then taste the beer and give me serious, honest feedback. And I don't need to trust my own palate. It wouldn't even make sense at that point. Why not throw a beer out to those kinds of people and see the reactions you're going to get, and then cultivate your full picture of how you think you did and what the flavors that are coming across for an audience. It's a huge resource.
Yeah, and that's important too. And on top of that, you've got to be kind of it's got to be something that might be a little nerve-wracking, or you got to have a certain sense of confidence about yourself to be able to do that, because these palates may come back with a, hey, what the hell are you doing? This sucks.
They may. I suppose that's part of it.
So it might be a little nerve-wracking.
Yeah, I suppose it is. Maybe it's my personality, but sure, it is a little nerve-wracking. But at the same time, I just keep at it. You just keep at pushing something until you get it right. And like I mentioned before, we do have the luxury of having a Sabco half-barrel test facility. And so most of the beers that I do have already seen 2-3 generations before I ever execute in the brew house. And that at least helps me wrap my head around an idea before I need to execute a full batch.
Right. Well, I guess now we should probably, I'm just going to throw it up on the screen. This is the classic Saison.
Yeah.
What's amazing is, this is what, 15 minutes now in the glass, and look at the head retention.
Yeah, it's still foam.
It's just amazing. It's a beautiful, it's super dry, earthy. There's a real nice crispness at the end. You might probably do a better job describing your beer than I would.
I suppose. I don't know. I like everybody's individual experience. You're throwing a lot of keywords. Earthy, crisp, dry. I would agree with all of those. I don't think we necessarily have the driest Saison on the market. I think some people may have a tendency to dry a little too far. But we're using a very characteristic yeast. And through the equipment that we have and the process that we use, we're able to accentuate the highlights of that yeast. And there are a whole lot of those aspects. And then we do also bottle condition, so there's no filtration. And for a non-filtered beer,
yeah, that's impressive.
That's pretty darn bright.
Yeah.
Pouring obviously is a huge piece. It's it is a bottle conditioned beer. So we do package into the champagne bottle that has the punt on the bottom, and if it's doing its job properly, that punt is holding on to most of the yeast, and you can pour properly. And just like a home brew, you want to leave maybe a half inch on the bottom, unless you really want to swirl it up and get that yeast character. You can also do that.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll get into it now, but I was going to mention, the second thing I was going to mention was, I love that it's a very yeast-forward Saison. I mean, Saison should showcase that yeast, and it's a beautiful, really beautiful presence of that yeast, which to me is awesome. It's my favorite style, and that's the reason why. It's that the yeast should be the king in this beer, and there should be a really nice malt backbone to hold it, but the yeast is king.
It sure is. It's a real interesting yeast too. I think one of the pieces that I really like about this beer too is that we're actually throwing quite a bit of hops at it. They happen to be low alpha hops.
Sure.
We're not, for the most part, we're not doing the typical American microbrew thing where I'm looking for 12 to 14 alpha, mosaics and all these monster hops.
Right.
So I'm using, Sots and little known hops from France and stuff like that. We're using some really elegant materials, but it weighs in with 30 plus IBUs, so it's
oh, wow.
Not a slouch.
You're right. This is part of what we were talking about before we actually started live, but I think beer, again, it goes back to that oyster story and the location. Part of the experience, and if you look at the labeling and the bottling, it all adds to kind of this, this is an elegant product, and so whether it kind of gets you in the mood, kind of like why you smell the beer and look at the beer before you actually taste it, you're getting your senses aroused, and the labeling is really cool. I mean, how do you guys come up with something like this?
Well, there are a few pieces to the labeling. We have a master gardener out at the farm, John Kuykendall, who's an absolute treasure. And he is just a singular character. I would suggest to everybody to go onto the website and read about John Kuykendall. And what we did is he keeps journals, loads and loads of journals. If you ever come to the farm and have an experience, many of the plates that you're served dishes on have his drawings on them. And so we doubled down on that idea, and the handwriting is his handwriting that we turned into a font. And so everything except for the Blackberry Farm logo on the bottom is all his handwriting.
That's pretty cool.
And then, and the rest of it is just to stay classic. Keep it simple. A lot of our beers aren't going to have a lot of fancy names. They are what they are. We're just trying to stay as simple as we can, I think, from a marketing perspective, and just let the beer talk to you, as opposed to trying to put an image in front of you to make you think of something else.
Right. And I love that. Straightforward, no bullshit, for lack of a better term, approach to beer. And another thing that you mentioned that I kind of like, that I want to hit on a little bit, is that you mentioned there's some maybe known, for lack of a better term, no name hops. It's not like Citra or Amarillo or any of these, but you can achieve. It's about what flavor do I want to achieve, and then do I need that to get there? Can I use something else to get there? Can I use heat to get there? Right? I mean, I think this may be more of a social analysis of what's going on now in beer, that people are getting too caught up in, a single hop Citra Pale Ale. Well, you maybe will get the same flavors through a different temperature. You keep, fermenting at a different temperature, using a different malt background against those different hops. May give you some really beautiful characters. It doesn't have to be this, for lack of a better term, big name hop.
Yeah, well, full disclosure, we use Citra in the summer.
Well, I know that.
but no, you're absolutely right. So one of the inspirations that we had, so the classic uses what's called French Triskel. I don't know of any brewery that's using French Triskel. But every year there is a dry hop Saison DuPont release. And in 2014, they focused on the French Triskel hop.
It's a good hop to
And
use.
as soon as I tasted that beer, I was blown away by that hop, and I was like, well, we got to find a way to bring some in, even if it's only short term, because it was a beautiful experience to have that beer, and I wanted to mimic some of that character. And so that's one of our that's our 20-minute edition. That's getting a huge piece of flavor, right? It's again, we have low alpha hops is our focus for the most part.
Sure.
We think they have a lot of character, and they're at least in the American market possibly underused. So we're having fun with a lot of really, really characterful hops.
That's a really cool. I mean, that's that tradition, right? You kind of draw inspiration from a traditional saison. I mean, Saison DuPont may be the saison. You know, that might be
Sure.
to measure all saisons against. So it's
Yeah,
cool
to a certain extent. I'm with that as much as I'm against that, because I think the history of a really serious saison is much broader than any one company represents.
Sure.
The style, if every homebrewer goes and peeks into their style guidelines and they look at the actual style guidelines for a saison, it's all over the place.
Sure.
So in reality, it's something different. However, you're right. That is a world-class beer, and to be able to even come close to mimicking that is definitely a goal.
And again, like you said, that beer itself is an incredibly simple beer. I mean, it's a single malt. It's a really simple beer, but again, the technique and the quality shows through the technique and the abilities of the brewer. And as this beer warms up, I'm just loving it. The yeast is coming forward more. It still has a nice, beautiful head retention, lacing, and the nose is really great too, because it kind of prepares you for that earthiness that the beer has. The yeast, like is it a Belgian yeast strain?
Yeah. Yep. It's
kind of
565, WLP 565. It's
I love that strain.
On yeast strain.
Yeah.
I like it a lot. It can struggle under certain circumstances. Some people have a hard time getting it to finish out.
Right.
I think through our process, we're not having any real trouble at all. I get down to plenty dry. I'm not trying to get overly dry, but 1.6 degrees Plato is pretty darn dry.
Yeah.
And it's nice to have at least a little bit of body left back in there.
Sure. No, it's great because it's got a really nice malt bill. You can tell. So we were talking about, this is not your first rodeo, obviously. So you started off home brewing. How long have you been brewing for, including your home brewing experience?
Oh, well, I think as many of us did, I homebrewed in college. So I got into college and I worked at a little place. It was a little deli and liquor store and homebrew supply place, which is Dry Dock. And so this would have been, mid-90s. And that was in Michigan. And so that was back in the days when Bell's Brewing Company was an infant. They were just getting started and still delivering their beer in a white 6-pack with a sticker for the same sticker that was on the bottle on the side of the 6-pack.
Nice.
And Larry Bell was beginning what would now become, the dynasty of Bell's Brewing Company.
Right.
So that's where my passion for beer and crafting beer really started. And then after that, as everybody does, you get out of college and you start looking for work. And I found myself in Oregon for a good number of years in a different industry, but still very passionate about crafting beer. And that's when I'd say my homebrewing career really started. But it was always about doing it competitively. There's a huge resource for homebrewers in the United States to compete. And it's very easy and not particularly expensive to do.
Sure.
And if you want real world feedback, instead of just, sitting at home and tasting your homebrew and thinking it's great, you can go put it out there up against your peers and find out actually if it is.
Right.
And I had great success doing that. And finally decided that I wanted to make a career change. I was making very good money in museum restoration and wanted to get out of that. And so I moved on to a brewery in Utah. It's still there. The Bohemian Brewery is a fantastic little brewery in Midvale, Utah, with Bobby Jackson, who's now at 10 Barrel. And Brian Erickson now is running Bohemian. But what was beautiful about starting there was that it was an authentic lager brewery. And so we were doing, it was a 5-vessel double decoction Pilsner brewery.
Mm-hmm.
Really serious too, really seriously doing it right.
Cool.
And with a bunch of guys that were, of course, in the early 2000s and young, having a lot of fun while we're doing it, but making very serious lager beer to put in a can. And we had a really good time. It was a really great proving ground. And then from there, I moved on to New Holland Brewing Company, where it's another really great, iconic Michigan brewery. And under John Haggerty, while he was there, learned a lot from him. And then, of course, all of the breweries in Michigan, John Mallet at Bell's, and just the list goes on, and you can talk about Michigan breweries.
Not too bad when you're talking about people to learn from, right?
No, that's the top tier. They're really just up there with everybody else, and you can't fail.
So we kind of glazed over, but you ended up, how'd you end up here? I mean, what kind of stars aligned to get you here?
Yeah, well, the managing director down here is a man named Roy Milner, and he's a real interesting character. He's a local and had been working with Blackberry on trying to develop this program and the beverage program. And for lack of a better term, we kind of dated, right? We were talking back and forth for about a year.
Match.com?
Yeah. Well, pro brewer, but so, but at any rate, he put out a very small footprint of advertisement to get people interested in his program. And we got talking, and eventually I was able to come down here, and very much like anybody's experience with the farm, if you come down here and you actually experience what's here, you're going to fall in love with it. And it was the ability for me to really take the reins of a program and run with something from a very early, an early time period, really the ground up. And that was a piece of my resume that I hadn't filled in quite yet, and really wanted the opportunity to do that. So that's how that came down.
What did that ad look like? Was it, we're going to focus on the Saison style and what kind of?
No, it was very vague. It was very vague. We didn't really talk about the beer much. He focused on it being a farmhouse brewery, which was a little nod to what it actually was. It's Blackberry Farm. We have incredible resources. And is it a farmhouse brewery? No, right? We have incredible resources. We have a state-of-the-art brew house. We have a serious production facility. But we also have the desire and, well, really it is really just the desire and passion to stay rooted in what goes on out at the farm. Mm-hmm. and talk about things that are local, and talk about things that are filled with passion and serious execution and attention to detail. And that's what grew out of our conversations as we were finally starting to piece together what the program would be, and what beers would be a part of that, and where it would be, and how we would put it all together.
Cool. I mean, so it ends up that your flagship is this Saison.
Right.
And then we were talking a little bit about the summer Saison, which has Citra, which happens to be my favorite hop. I didn't mean to down talk it.
No.
I'm just saying it's not everything. Um,
What it does have, it's not just Citra. What it does have is a really beautiful hop out of Australia called Australian Summer. And one of our focuses behind the seasonal Saison is to just speak about it seasonally. It's not whatever you want to call it, right? You can call it some crazy name, or you could just call it your summer farmhouse ale,
sure.
right? And that's what it is. And we choose to focus on a little different factor of beer production and ingredients with each of these seasonal Saisons. So with the summer, it was hops. And the Australian summer hop is one of the more expensive hops out there on the market. It's gorgeous. It's not particularly high alpha, but it just has this remarkable character to it that you just can't resist. You just want to play with it right away as soon as you roll some up in your hands and take a whiff. And so we're just doing little tweaks with the fall. Then we're starting to focus on rye and different characteristics. The winter will be coming out. It's going to be a deeper, richer beer, a black version. The spring, I'll hold in reserve. We're going to do something fun for that here coming in the spring.
Awesome. I think it's a really cool idea. I mean, what kind of other things can we expect? Maybe other styles down the line as the brewery becomes more established, the routines start to come into play, and then we can start kind of seeing maybe other bottled offerings.
Right. So in the short term, one of the things that we're doing is we're bringing on kegs. So we're going to keg off the seasonal Saisons every year as well as bottle, because we need to find ourselves into the tap handle market. We are definitely a Belgian themed brewery. So we're going to be coming out with a whole line of Abbey style products, a single, double, triple, and a quad. And those are going to be the main focus of next year. Like we were talking earlier, we're bringing on a wood program. We'll finally have we have the barrels filled right now with our first set. We're bringing on a separate bottling line to do all of our either wood-aged sour program type things.
Great.
So we're looking at a Brett Saison, and then also some Flanders style products. And if I have my way and can work out being here for enough years, some lambic style products.
All right.
The modern American sour is one thing, but to be convincingly as close to true lambic as you can get in the United States is a very serious goal. Some people will say that you cannot do it. You're not in Brussels. You can't do wild fermentation. You can't do this. But I would love to be able to put a product on a table and in a blind tasting be able to compete with that.
There you go. That's a lofty goal, but hey, I don't see why not.
It's a huge goal. Yeah, it's a big goal.
You've got, I mean, in Tennessee, you've got the winters get down pretty cool.
Yep.
You know, I mean, it might not taste exactly. You may get different microorganisms in the beer, but you can get your own kind of style. Your own kind of terroir to that style of beer.
Yep.
Yeah, why not? So we were talking about the Belgian style beers, and so I know that through kind of researching you guys custom built the brew house and the brewery, and you've got some special fermentation vessels just for these kinds of Belgian beers, which I imagine ended up costing you more than a standard brew house of standard fermentation vessels. And why is it important to kind of go that extra mile to make sure that you're staying as true to form as possible, as true to style as possible?
Right. So to start from the beginning, we did choose a 4-vessel brew house. We wanted to do step mashing. I'd say that's probably a minority in most microbrewing in the United States. But it from those days back at the Bohemian when we were doing double decoction, it was really important to me that we spend the time on that mash schedule and really get everything out of that we could. Even though most of these grains, so another piece of that puzzle is that We use entirely Weyermann barley, Weyermann Malting Company from Bamberg, Germany. Top of the line, really excellent quality stuff. Our base malt is their floor malted Pilsner. Even in the literature, its own literature, it says it converts in 20 minutes. So, but my mash schedule is an hour and 20 minutes long. And it's that way for a reason, because we want to continue to do those types of things. I actually think they're doing something. There's going to be a lot of naysayers whether they think decoction means anything anymore and all this stuff. I do it because I like doing it, and I'm not afraid to spend the time on doing it. I think it benefits the beer.
Sure.
Now, fermentation side are these squat fermenters. So imagine if you take a typical conical and you just squish it. So it's going to get wider, and then your cone is going to get considerably more shallow. And one of the reasons we chose these is that a great brewer, Yvon de Betz, uses them, and he has them custom built for him, and he gave a presentation about them, and it fascinated me. It fascinated the company, and we wanted to really try and execute something of that level of authenticity. Look, this, Yvon de Betz is using them. Why wouldn't we?
Sure.
So we went for it. So we have these two, they're 40 barrel fermenters. They are squat. It's the only way to call them. Now, what they don't do is crop very well, right? Why everybody moved into the typical sort of cigar-shaped, tall cylinder conical is so they could crop yeast.
Sure.
And that's a smart move. What we do is, instead of now transferring to a typical flat bottom bright, we make our transfer to another typical normal conical. And what that does is, through the hydrostatic pressure that you get from all that extra beer sitting on top of it, squeezes out that yeast, and that's where I take my yeast pitches from. So I can still do a yeast pitch as normal, cone to cone, right?
Sure.
And get a really, really good result that way. And that's why those tanks are designed to create extra surface area for the krausen, less hydrostatic pressure. Part of our fermentation is about free rise temperatures.
Sure.
We're easily approaching, during the winter, it's 87, 88. During the summer, could be up to 92, 93.
Right.
And these aren't temperatures.
But yeast loves that. I mean, that's why you're not sticking. I think you're getting those high temperatures, which is yeah,
absolutely. I also think a piece of our puzzle is that we're also knocking out quite a bit lower in temperature than a lot of people would be. So I'm knocking out into the 60s as opposed to the 70s.
Oh, okay.
A good portion of my fermentation is happening at lower temperatures. It's the free rise. It's allowing the yeast to do their job under their own conditions without trying to make them do too terribly much.
Sure. Cool. It adds a nice. It definitely makes a nice complexity to the beer. I mean, that yeast itself has a lot of nuances to it.
It does. Yeah.
But
phenolics, right? The phenolic flavors are created at those lower temperatures. The real fruit esters are created at the higher temperatures. And I think we're getting a really elegant blend of that. It's not super peppery, and it's not super banana. It's this nice smooth blend of all those little characteristics through.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going with it. So you put it a lot more beautiful than I would have. But that's exactly where I was going with that, because that's something that like you said, that yeast is really kind of finicky. And I think the only reason I know is because I use it, and I fermented in my garage in Miami. But I don't do the 60s high. I just throw it in my garage at 85 degrees and let it go. So it's fruity, and the banana kind of comes through. And so it's
well, that's going to be when you're working in a homebrew environment, your equipment has a lot to do with what you can do.
Sure.
These Sprinkman tanks have a serious amount of insulation on them.
Right.
Obviously, when you compare, at homebrew level, and we have to take a page with that too, because when we do test batching, we're only producing, a half barrel, 12, 14 gallons of beer.
Right.
So we have to remember that we don't have the temperature control that we do here. We don't have the kind of insulation that we do here, and the beer is going to turn out very different.
And you can taste. I mean, listening to your thought process through these beers, and just start to finish, what equipment we're going to have, how we're going to allow the yeast to evolve. You can taste all that in the beer, and it's really evident in this, just the classic Saison, and it really is a beautiful beer. And I guess where I'm going with this is that, you kept talking about the food in the beginning, and when you read through your literature, when you read through stuff about the brewery and about the farm, it's a lot about the food. The food's a real important thing, and I think that are you guys motivated by the food at the farm? I mean, did that kind of help you develop this classic Saison style? It's something versatile with food.
Yeah, to a certain extent. It would be a lie to say that I'm not influenced by the food at the farm. It's incredible. The level of execution and the attention to detail is mind-blowing. And that inspires you to do the same to the beer. Now, that being said, the culture of the beer produced in Belgium is all about being table friendly. And I don't think it's a surprise that we chose to use that route for the beers that we wanted to use as our message, because there's a whole subculture in Belgium that is all about, pairing food and beer. Not that the Brits don't do it and the Germans don't do it. Everybody does it, right? Pairing food and beer has existed as long as food and beer has existed. But taking that to sort of a higher level of attention to detail, where we really want to craft something that is deliberately set to pair with more things than maybe your English ESB might, and really play friendly at the table. And that's a huge focus for us, for sure.
I think the Saison is a great style to do that with.
It is, right? Yeah, it absolutely is. And then again, the way we choose to do it, because the Saison category itself is quite broad.
Yeah.
Right. It could be amber and all kinds of peppery, but this one that we're doing is considerably more. Really, I like to think of it as almost Pilsner-esque. This recipe, if you were to throw a German lager yeast at it, you'd end up with an incredible German lager.
Sure.
So we're really letting that yeast shine and bring its character to the party, but still, like, think about, go pick up a Pilsner or Kel and tell me what that does not play well with.
Right.
Right. It's an incredible beer that plays well at the table with in all sorts of food.
Yeah. It's funny because I went to, I was in Prague, and it's just kind of a side story. I was in Prague, and I was like, let me see what local Pilsners I can get, and you'd always ask everybody, even at the craft bars in Prague, what do you drink on a regular basis? Everyone goes Pilsner or Urquell, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me! I can get that in Miami. And
yeah, but you can't get that fresh.
Oh man, you drink it over there. It's mind blowing. I mean, it is a mind blowingly good, just phenomenal beer. And you're right. They serve like the pig knee, or the joint.
Sure.
That goes with it. The pickled vegetables they serve, that goes with it. Everything.
Shellfish, just everything.
Everything. It's just a phenomenal beer, and that to me is something that's really important with beer, and I think for it to stay. And I always bring this up, but I think that unfortunately, there's still a lot of people out there that don't see, in America at least, that don't see beer as this. I'm gonna go have a nice dinner. Let me pick up a $20 bottle of Saison to pair with my dinner. Yeah. They go pick up a bottle of wine a lot of times.
Sure.
But they don't see the versatility of something like this classic Saison. They don't see they don't see how much you can pair it with, and probably 9 times out of 10, especially because of the carbonation that you get in a beer that you don't have in a wine, you're gonna have a better experience with it. It's gonna refresh your palate for the next bite. You can pair it with a lot more things. It's gonna maybe mash even a little better.
Yeah, there's a lot of information out there. I would challenge a lot of people to read Randy Mosher's books. He talks a lot about that. Beer is an excellent beverage for the table. We're just still Garrett Oliver, the brewmaster's table. It's the cutting edge of what's going on in the industry right now, and I think there's a lot of ground to cover there yet.
It seemed like you guys had kind of that focus when starting. I mean, at least a lot of stuff I read, you wanted to get into the best restaurants. It was important to you guys to do that.
Yeah, well, that's the connection through the farm for sure. We would like to have our beer be presented that way. You do relinquish control a little bit, right? Because of the 3-tier system in the United States, you're looking to sell your beer to the distributor, and the distributor is then now they own it, and they're gonna sell it because they want to sell it. And we were very, very interested in trying to represent our brand the way we wanted the brand to be represented.
Sure.
And hitting those key markets, hitting those key places where people would get as much of the Blackberry feel as we can give them in their own sort of living room, for lack of a better term, in their own area without being at the farm and having us put it all together for them.
Sure. And why, I guess a lot of brewers have that concern, not only with just making sure the distributor gets into the right places, but the distributor takes care of it, and holds the beer in the right temperature, the right conditions.
Yeah.
It's a big concern for a lot of brewers that I've talked to, but I guess
you do have to let go.
Right.
Sometimes you have to trust and just let it go.
But I guess back to my original question, why was it so important? Was it to replicate that experience at the farm, to get it into these real high-end restaurants? And then my second question on top of that is, what has kind of been the response from the chefs in these restaurants, the patrons of these restaurants, to being, they go into a restaurant and maybe the server says, "Hey, you should try this Blackberry farm beer."
I think really, to boil it all down, it's about this thing. What we can do is you can get on to Blackberry and become a friend of the farm. Then you get regular emails about what's going on and feeds like that. And that is really what it distills down to, is that it's about connections. It's about the people that you know and why you know them and why you have these connections. And the hospitality of saying, I want this to come to you because I know you and I appreciate your product and you appreciate my product, and we want to make sure that they feel special, that they're getting something special. The beer, we're not making very much, to be honest. I mean, this is still a very small brewery. And so to a certain extent, to be able to get what you can of it is meant to be a little bit of a pleasure.
Sure.
Right? Something a little bit special.
What was kind of the styles that you were brewing before coming to Blackberry Farm? How did that translate into Blackberry?
Well, it's a 1-to-1 correlation with the Bohemian Brewery. Those were seriously crafted lagers, and authentically so. Those were heady days. We had, like I said, we had a lot of fun as young men, but we were making very serious beer. And New Holland Brewing Company, I learned a lot being there through John Haggerty, just because he had absolutely no limits. Anything could be done. And he was very open. He was very interested in cultivating ideas through his team and trying to execute at the highest level, and not being afraid of using technology or anything for that matter. Obviously New Holland is creating, for the most part, what is the standard fare for microbreweries nowadays, right? A couple of IPAs, an amber, a stout, right? And all this stuff. And they're doing some unique things within that. But it's fairly standard fare beer. Coming here was the opportunity to focus. We want to be creative. We want to have the opportunity to do fun things. We're working on a little side project with muscadines right now that we're thinking about doing something into. But it was the focus first. Do something really, really well and put a lot of focus into the classic and then its little body of work, which was then the seasonals. And then we're going to do that again here with our Abbey series, where we're going to, it'll be what everybody knows about Abbey series. We're not going to put up a lot of fanfare to it. It's going to be a single, double, a triple, and a quad. Everybody knows them, but we're going to put in some deep focus, and we're going to add some special ingredients that talk about our area here and our place here. Our double, for instance, instead of using Belgian candy syrup, we're going to use sorghum syrup, which is a very local ingredient.
Sure.
So we want to try and be able to talk as much as we can about our versions of these things. It's just another double, but it's ours.
Right. I love that.
We're really going to take ownership of it.
I love that. You're going into that, what makes these Belgian beers Belgian is that terroir, that sense of this is a Belgian beer.
Yeah.
And I love that you guys are recreating that with your area. And we're seeing breweries now in America starting to embrace that, where it's not like, let's throw a bunch of extract in this and make it taste like, marshmallows and peanut butter. And that's, what we do. It's let's make this inherently, our zip code. Let's make this, you see Jester King doing it, doing it, Ale Apothecary doing it. You've got all these breweries around the country kind of creating their own, locality. So that's really awesome and really cool that you guys are thinking about how can we make it ours, still paying respect to what the style is and what the style is.
Definitely one foot in the past and another, in sort of, I don't want to say looking forward, but a certain nod to where these classic styles have come from, these historical styles that everybody knows. But then we're really going to take ownership on our version of it.
Cool. How can people find out more about what's going on at the farm? There's like that mailing list that you were talking about.
I would go straight to the website. The farm itself is an amazing resource. There's a lot going on there. I can't think of a person who would not want to at least go there and check out the site to see what's going on, because there's something for everybody. It's not just about the food. It's not just about the beverage program. The events program and the growth going forward that's going to be happening here in the next few years is really, really remarkable.
Is there anything you're looking forward to, really looking forward to that maybe isn't on the website, but something that maybe a beer geek would get really excited about? You're looking forward to for the brewery in the future for 2016, other than the Abbey series? 2016,
we're working on putting together an event with Sam Calgione and Dogfish Head. That's still in the works. So there will be something fun that comes out of that. We're trying to do more of these beer focused weekends or dinners where you can come down for a few days and have an experience. And we'll see where that goes. My focus is mostly in the brewery. We have a whole marketing team. Part of the beauty about being at Blackberry is that it's a big group of people. It's close, John, is it close to 400 employees? And so I get to focus on my piece of the puzzle.
Cool.
And really put the attention that it deserves into that, and let the other things be driven by those other people who are also going to then put that much focus into what they're doing. So it may be as much of a surprise to me as you about some of the miraculous things that come out of the farm here in the next year or two.
Are you guys, and this is kind of like maybe one of the last questions I kind of have that's been coming up in my head is, so you got this farm, you got this incredible resource there. Can we expect to see maybe some of the fruits or vegetables that are grown on the farm used in beers in the future?
Okay, so yes and no.
Okay.
Essentially, when you're talking about full-blown production beers, even at relatively small volume that we are, the acreage that is available at the farm would not be able to support most of what we wanted to do. That doesn't mean that we're not going to use local farmers or use the resources of John Kuykendall to create seed stock.
Sure.
There's a lot of really interesting ideas kicking around. I have a little gathering here at the brewery with all the farmstead artisans that I try and do every quarter. And one of the things that we've been talking about recently, and I'm sure we'll talk about again here in the fall, is an heirloom variety of corn called Bloody Butcher. And being able to generate the seed stock and then find a way to get it planted in the amounts that I could use them here in the brewery, where I would need, hundreds of pounds. Those ideas are what's very useful about the farm.
Cool.
Also, for instance, muscadines, right? We're doing some recent experimentation on this muscadine project. It's a very local ingredient. Is it grown on the farm? No. It's grown by Tasali Vineyards 20 minutes down the road. So the farm itself is really based upon whether or not we can do something there on site. We'll definitely do something with local ingredients off of the farm at the little farm test brewery for sure. We have done that in the past and we'll continue to do that. But those will be in definitely more homebrewed style volumes where perfect for a small event where you want to have something special, but not something you can distribute on a national level.
Perfect. That's cool. I mean, it's more reason to go experience the beer in where it's probably meant to be experienced best.
Yeah, it's a really amazing place.
That's awesome. Well, look, it is 7 o'clock on a Friday. I really appreciate you being here at 7 o'clock on Friday.
Pleasure.
There's a million questions I still have because I'm a nerd and I really want to know everything about what you guys have. But I guess what the takeaway is these beers are just so beautifully produced, and there's so much thought process going behind what you guys are doing there that, to the extent that people can get their hands on them, I really recommend people do. I mean, they're straightforward, no nonsense beers. They're just, it's just a really nice product. I still have a little bit of beer left in the glass, and I still have foam on top of it, which is, to me, like we were talking about, it's just a sexy thing. It is awesome.
That's nice, huh?
That kind of, respect and admiration for the product, and you can tell that you've got a respect and admiration for the product that you're putting out, and that's, it doesn't come forward in all the beers that I get to try. So it's a really cool thing to get to kind of grab this beer and say, I can taste the hands of the maker, kind of thing, like you can in a really nice glass of wine. And it starts from the presentation into the glass, into the nose, onto the palate. It's just a really great experience. So thank you for talking about them. I hope people go onto the website and learn more about you guys, seek you guys out.
Yeah, absolutely. I encourage everybody to get on the website. It's a huge wealth of resource to surf around on and see everything that goes on the farms. I can't speak enough to it. It's a remarkable place. Yeah,
and I think that's the word to use, remarkable. So again, thank you for being here. I think we're going to close it up on that, and hopefully we hear from you again in the future with your second GABF medal.
Yeah.
And, good
you
luck.
And me both.
All righty.
All right. Thanks, Marco.
Got it.